Thanks, everyone. We'll just start the concurrent session number 2 for this afternoon. So we've got 3 sessions this afternoon. The sessions will go for about 20 minutes for the presentations. Then we'll have about 10 minutes to ask questions. Given the really tight time frames that we've had today, we'll be keeping to those times. So for the presenters, we'll give you a warning bell at 17 minutes and then we'll ding again at 20 minutes. So I'd like to introduce Rachel Matheson, Project Coordinator of the Carers and Employers Network with Carers New South Wales, and Kerry Lowe, Manager of Inclusion and Diversity Workforce Strategy, Inclusion and Systems, have I got that right? That's a bit of a mouthful, Kerry. Yeah, from the New South Wales Department of Communities and Justice. Their presentation on Carers and Employers, a project to support carers in the workplace. Thank you.
Hello. So I'm Rachel and I've got Kerry who'll be speaking shortly. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this event takes place, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I'd also like to show my respect for elders past, present and emerging, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the room. I'd also like to just express my thanks to all the speakers that have come before me who've shared their stories so openly and shared such valuable information amongst us. So you've set a high bar and I hope we can contribute today and you get something out of our session as well. So, so I'm going to speak for about 5 to 10 minutes and then you'll be hearing from Kerry. And I'll just give you some brief background on the Carers and Employers project, why it's important that we all support carers in the workplace, and you're probably already well aware of that, given some of the sessions we've had earlier today. I'll tell you a little bit about exactly what the Carers and Employers project is, and then hand over to Kerry. So essentially, the Carers and Employers program is a national accreditation employer program. It was launched around this time last year, October 2018. It came out of the 2014 to 2019 Carers strategy, obviously to address needs of carers who were balancing work and care and looking to improve the employment outcomes. The project had a lot of work going behind it. There was a large project group that comprised carer representatives from industry and also from government. So I don't know whether we've heard the statistic today, but when I stepped into the role, this is one that I became familiar with quite quickly. It's from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and it says that 1 in 8 are carers. Now, from all I've heard today, I suspect quite possibly this might even be an underrepresentation because we've heard again and again how often people don't identify as carers. So I'm not entirely sure of all the background to that figure, but I highly suspect that perhaps that number might even be higher. And it also looks set to increase. As we heard earlier from Professor Marion Baird about the ageing population, she had some fabulous numbers and statistics and ideas that she put forward, which tie in quite closely with what we're seeing and looking at. We've got, yes, with the ageing population, people remaining in the workforce longer, choosing to age at home, and we also are seeing people with disabilities living longer, possibly in pockets reduced welfare spending, and also the move out of institutions. So all of that looks to potentially see the increase in carers in the workplace and carers just generally. So I think we're probably aware of what happens if carers aren't supported, but just highlighting this quickly, there's that increased strain on community and health resources as well as on the carer themselves and the carer's family, the reduced labour force participation, which is where in particular my project focuses on. There's the reduced GDP and the reduced wellbeing, which is of such concern to, I think, so many in the room. All right, so this is my slide with some numbers and statistics, which I'll just spend a little bit of time going through because I think they're worth looking at. This came out of the 2018 Carers New South Wales survey, and it was asking about the impacts the caring role had on carers' ability to engage in paid work. And what was reported was that 31% of respondents had thought about quitting their job, 37% had reduced their working hours, and I think we heard about some of those impacts to career. 18% had turned down a new job or promotion, and 29% had had skills or qualifications become outdated. So when they'd stepped outside of work to care for family or friend, they skills and qualifications didn't have the currency, and so that set them up again with some challenges, you know, in terms of looking to re-enter the workforce. Now, I think before I move on, I kind of look at that slide, and I think that's a little bit of a call to action as well when we see those sorts of figures and numbers. And obviously, we're wanting to bring that to the attention of employers, and I think it also should be, you know, part of a national agenda item as well. So, I'm very excited to have stepped into the role in the Carers and Employers project. I've been meeting some wonderful people who are doing some wonderful work. Basically, the project comprises of bringing together a network of members, so employers, progressive employers who want to share ideas around best practice for creating carer-friendly workplaces. There's also a component to the program that allows organisations to become accredited carer employer, and there are 3 level program tiers that are available for accreditation for organisations. It basically involves meeting certain criteria which are submitted in terms of evidence to carers and employers, reviewed, and upon successful submission, they're awarded at the level of submission. So, for example, level 1 Activate, once that accreditation level has been gained, an employer receives a certificate of accreditation and use of a logo for 24 months, which signifies to, I guess, a wider audience, to carers, and also for those employers who want to be seen as employers of choice, that they have that in their workplace. So just breaking it down just a little bit more, in terms of the network, we've got, at the moment, currently, we've got a LinkedIn group that we're using to share ideas and communicate and celebrate organisations that when they gain accreditation and when we see them putting into practice strategies and policies and initiatives into their workplace that are carer-friendly, a way of promoting and celebrating those initiatives. We've got a number of resources to share. We've got some more functionality coming soon on our website in terms of member login, in terms of, again, sharing of resources and ideas and best practice. And then going a little bit into just a little bit more detail in terms of the program accreditation in the 3 different tiers. Level 1, where organisations start, is for those organisations that are beginning to develop those carer-friendly practices in their workplace. Level 2, Commit. It basically looks at building on level 1 and looking at embedding those into the organisation sort of more deeply. And then level 3 are those organisations who are leaders in this area, showcasing best practice and innovation, and being leaders and examples to other organisations. I haven't been looking at my notes, so I'm just going to quickly glance down and see whether I've been missing anything there. Probably worth mentioning there, at level 1, Activate, there are 7 standards and 9 criteria we look for in organisations. At level 2, there are 14 standards and 14 criteria, and at level 3, there are 18 standards and 30 criteria. So that sounds like a lot, but I think Kerry will be going through what that involves, and so the criteria aren't meant to be so onerous that it's too difficult for any organisation, but they are sort of robust and in terms of what we need to see, and there's also an element of flexibility, so organisations are able to show us in terms of what is relevant and suitable within their organisation, but still fits within that sort of quite standard framework that we have. So there's 5 key areas of focus, and again with Kerry's presentation you'll sort of see examples of what we mean and what we want to see in terms of each of these different areas of focus. We're looking for carer recognition. I think today we've heard that often carers don't identify as carers in a number of different areas, and at work what we want to see is that carers being able to identify and to be able to disclose when they're comfortable, up to, obviously all those sorts of, we respect an individual's right to disclose or not disclose, but to have organisations feel like safe places where disclosure is possible and people can bring their whole selves to work. Looking to see what organisations are doing in terms of their own policies and procedures, how carers are recognised in these policies and procedures, how flexible working conditions, for example, are included in policies and procedures, and how they're showcased and how they're visible to in terms of access for carers and other groups. There's the capacity building, the education, training and skill building. There's the communication and awareness. So, for example, whether it's sort of our newsletters, messages from leaders in the organisation. And then the last area is the practical workplace support that makes it easy for, helps carers in the workplace, whether they're a car parking spot that enables them to be able to leave work at the drop of a hat, or a quiet room, or access to EAP. There are any number of measures, all are either important to carers that just make it that little bit easier when they're carrying the burden quite often of work and care, and even just what might appear to be small initiatives, all go towards sort of making the role of balancing both care and work that little bit easier. Now, hopefully I'm not stealing too much of Kerry's thunder here. I've just done a quick example of what we might see from organisations who have contributed, who've submitted evidence in terms of level 1 Activate. And this was from Department of Families and Community Services before they joined and became the Department of Communities and Justice. So you'll see on their intranet, carers have their own place on the intranet within the diversity tab, I believe. I think I'm seeing when I'm going out to organisations, carers often kind of get grouped in with parents when we know the definition of the Carer Recognition Act. It's important that carers be able to identify in their own right, have their own platform, if you like, and their own position on a intranet tab. And the other example there I've got up is in terms of, I think that's the practical workplace support. That's an example of the EAP that's available for employees. I think in that example, the EAP services provide for tailored support for carers and also people with disabilities. So that's probably something we would see, above and beyond a level 1 submission. So went above, but certainly met the level 1 criteria. So getting to the end now, and hopefully still allowing Kerry enough time. Part of the, I guess, the benefits and the inclusions for any organisation that applies to become an accredited organisation. They receive ongoing telephone and email support. There's training and consultation, so 4 hours training in the first year and 2 hours training in the second year. So I think I mentioned earlier they also get the use of the logo for 2 years. And there's a certificate that goes out for display clearly, so carers in the workplace can see that this organisation is a carer-friendly workplace. And we've got some of those toolkits and resources. And for the employers, what I'm kind of, I guess, hopefully getting some interest from them is around those benefits for attracting talent. Again, tying back into some of the earlier themes that Marion talked to us about earlier today. The corporate social responsibility, attracting talent, and a lot of the organisations out there are looking at their employer value proposition, hopefully we'll see value, additional value apart from the fact that caring is everyone's responsibility, but in terms of being able to display that proudly in their communications. So just in summary, very proudly, this is a first for Australia. It's a national program. While it's funded from Carers New South Wales, and it has funding from the New South Wales government and initially had funding from the federal government. It is a national program. It's rigorous and robust in its standardisation, but does allow the flexibility for all organisations to be able to submit and apply for accreditation. We're looking for real industry change and reform because I think it's clear that it's needed. I'm hearing stories from lots of carers about impacts to career, the mental load in terms of working and caring. We're also looking for genuine engagement from organisations, so it's not a tick box exercise. We're going out there and doing our best to educate and inform organisations to share those valuable carer stories with them. And I think on that note, I think I'm probably about time for me to wrap up now and hand over to Kerry. And I am available if anyone's interested in finding out more from an employer perspective or just having a conversation that will be helpful for me in my role. I look forward to speaking with anyone after.
Hi everyone. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge that we're on Aboriginal land and to pay my respects to Elders past and present and emerging, as well as any Aboriginal people here with us today. So we were Family and Community Services when we achieved this, but on 1 July, as part of all the changes of the government, we became the Department of Communities and Justice. So now we've got to work hard to achieve this across the department. Bit of background about Departments of Communities and Justice. We're sort of responsible for child protection, family support, social housing. Disability is a big part of our role, and ageing. And on the justice side, it's courts and tribunals and corrective services. So we're now part of the Stronger Communities Cluster, is what we're called. And so given the work that we do, it's really important that we're a carer-friendly workplace because we support a lot of carers in the role that we do. I'll see if I can get this right. So we're obviously invited here today to share with you our experience of becoming a level 1 accreditation carer. The submission process was sort of, when we first decided to go down this path, we were a little worried about what this might involve, but I have to say that the process, the frameworks, all the toolkits are really very clear in terms of what you need to do. And if you get stuck along the way, Rachel and Monique, who I don't know if Monique's here, are really great with providing answers to questions and guidance along the way. So just a little acknowledgement there. So just a bit of a snapshot in terms of carer recognition. It's what Rachel talked about. It's about making sure that on your websites and on your employee pages that you acknowledge what a carer is, what supports are available for carers, understanding the Carers Recognition Act, so information about that, and sharing that wherever you can in terms of definition of carers. In terms of policies and procedures, I guess it's about making sure that when you develop your policies and procedures that you acknowledge carers in that process. So we have a policy consultation framework that has a number of key stakeholders that we consult with as part of the development of any policy or procedure, and carers are included in that consultation group because it's really important that when we develop policies and procedures that we don't inadvertently put something in there that makes it very difficult for carers or people with disabilities. So we're always really conscious of that in the process. And the carers in our organisation really appreciate being able to provide that input. The other thing I'll mention with policies is it's really important to have stuff around flexible work. So we've had a really big focus on flexible work in communities and justice. We've been piloting it, we've been out across the whole department educating managers about the importance of flexible work and moving away from that culture of what we call presenteeism, i.e. if you're not in front of me, then you're not doing any work. So we really focus on you don't have to be sitting in front of me to be sure that someone's doing work. You can measure that through, work outputs and other ways. And moving away from that to be sitting at a desk is the only way that you can be doing work. So that's been really important for us. I think the capacity building obviously is really important in terms of making sure that you've got the right things in place to support carers in the workplace. But I think for us, the bottom two were the key to making this work. So communication and awareness. We've had a really big focus on communication. We've been active in the Care for a Carer campaign. So we had posters in all our bathrooms, really promoting that across the department, information in our newsletters. Our secretary is probably one of the biggest advocates you can get in the area of inclusion, and he's actually developed a video which is available, and I guess I can't emphasise enough the importance of having a really committed leadership team. And Michael Kritztrotter, if you've ever met him, is absolutely 100% inclusive. But I guess for us, practical workplace support. So things like, Rachel mentioned the employee assistance program. So we have a carer-specific employee assistance program to provide support for carers, acknowledging that there are many different issues that carers face that are not necessarily faced generally by employees. But I think that the key thing for us and the area for success was flexible work. So the thing that we heard time and time again from carers, as well as people with disability, was the importance of having flexible work. And that's made a huge difference in terms of, so feedback from carers is that having access to flexible work has been really important in allowing them to balance responsibilities between their carer responsibilities and the workplace. So the submission process is just a little bit of an example for the carer recognition page, some of the things that we did to show that we met that criteria, and that was around, our intranet pages, the policies that we had in place that recognised carers in our policy consultation framework, and I think Rachel sort of covered that in detail. So this is just a little bit of an example of us having a bit of a show off about when we achieved level 1 accreditation. we are very good at celebrating things in Department of Communities and Justice, and we were really proud that we achieved level 1 accreditation, and that actually went out. We actually had a newsletter that went out in what we call our headlines, which is our department-wide newsletter, as well as that was actually published on the intranet. So celebrating success along the way is really important. And as I said, Carers New South Wales were really supportive along the way, and that was really helpful. So after we gained accreditation, we published that article, as I said, and we celebrated that success, and now we're looking on the journey to go a bit further. And so how do we support workers? As I said, we're very much focused on flexible work. All the feedback we've received is that having access to flexible work is really important, and that could be part-time work, it could be staggered hours, so recognising that carers may need to leave a bit earlier or start a bit later. It might be working from a different location, so it might be working closer to home on some days, or it might be working from home. And as I said, we moved very much away from that. You know, you have to be in front of me to be doing work. It's all about work outputs and things like that. So being flexible, policy consultation I talked about. The other thing that we do in Communities and Justice is we participate in the Australian Network on Disability Access and Inclusion Index. And there are 10 key measurement areas there for, it's around people with disability, but it does sort of touch on carers as well. And it provides a really useful way to measure how you're going in this space. Data analysis, so People Matter employee survey. So some of you will know that the government does a People Matter employee survey, okay, every year, and measuring your responses in employee engagement is really critical in that space. And our diversity network, so I don't know if Chris is here, but I was really interested in what he said about the Disability Employee Network became the Carers Network, and that's something that I think we'd like to explore as well. So these are just some stories, and I just want to thank the people that were that shared their stories with us. So Jo became a carer of her husband David, who had a stroke 6 months after they got married. And for her, it means caring for someone and not just on the surface, but to love, empathise and understand. And Deborah, she doesn't see herself as a carer, she sees herself as a parent raising a child, looking after needs. For her, it's my experience has taught me to be open in telling others what my life looks like and my strengths and weaknesses. Recognising the diversity of family and caring responsibilities helps to foster a more balanced and work-friendly environment for everyone. So we're now on the journey to achieve level 2 accreditation, and we hope to do that in June 2020, and level 3 we hope to achieve June 2021. And I'd just like to acknowledge Christina, who did a lot of the work in this space, Helen McFarlane and Katrina McDonald and Tanya Smythe, who all helped in the journey to achieve level 1 accreditation. And that's us having a bit of a show off. So